What is up, Squared Nation? Welcome back to No Counters, No Combos, and it's Monday, so we're talking some future meta here. I was very happy with how Meta Monday was received last week with the Universe 6 Kaba deck that we profiled here on the channel. Shout out to my teammate Giovanni for allowing me to use that build for one of our videos. And this week, we're going to come right at it again. This build was brought to us by Kevin, one of our teammates at Counter Club. So shout out to you, Kevin. He is definitely the brainchild behind this deck, the brain behind the brew. This is a very interesting setup he's got here. We're gonna go card for card and just talk about what he's aiming for. But as you can see, it's multicolored, and we're just gonna get right into it. So the first card we're gonna go over is probably a leader that is known but is not well known. It came out in Clash of Fates. Son-Goku on the front, and then Son-Goku with Legendary Super Saiyan on the back. So it came out in Clash of Fates. It was one of the interesting leaders that came out in Clash of Fates that used like the shout out to Egman, the Let's Kill Krillin archetype to bring out the 5-drop Goku. So we're just kind of piggybacking on that somewhat, but not really. But we'll get into it as we go over the leader. So if we're looking at the leader on the front side, it's an auto burst 2. When this card attacks, you may choose one green card in your hand, place it in the drop area. If you do, draw 2 cards. So you burst 2, pitch a green, and draw 2. So you're cycling 3 cards every time he swings. And then when when you're at 4 life, you can awaken and untap 2 of your energy. So it's an untap 2 leader. This leader probably didn't see so much play because when Clash of Fates came out, it was in the heart of a Janemba format, or Janemba dominance is what I should say. So Burst was kind of like the redheaded stepchild of Dragon Ball Super. But now it's kind of a little better, but at the same time, it depends on how you want to feel your drop area. So when you awaken, you go to Son Goku Legendary Super Saiyan, auto, sparking 5. When this card attacks, draw a card. And if a Krillin card is in your drop area, this card gets plus 5,000 power and double strike for the duration of the turn. So you can see why there are Krillin cards in this deck, because you want to take advantage of that double strike plus 5k, making it a 20k double strike on the back that draws you cards. Insane pressure when you're awakened, but you're not gonna want to get to your backside as quickly as you think. So we'll explain everything as we get through the deck here. So the first couple cards we're gonna go through, everybody knows. Obviously, the first target we have up here is Trunks Power Overseeing Time. It's a 4-drop Overwhelm for 2. You have to have 4 cards in your drop area to use it to overwhelm it. And when you play this card using Overwhelm, you get to choose one of your battle cards from the drop area and bring it to your hand. So it's really good for recycling your pieces. Obviously, you're playing a Burst leader, so if you mill off your pieces with Burst, it's nice to get them back and be able to use them later on in the game. And Trunks is just a solid card. It's a 20k double striker that can put pressure for late game, for late game lethal if you really need to. But for the most part, it's to recycle the cards that you need to ensure your win con. Then we have 2 Zenos. Obviously, Zeno's a very good safety net right now. It's pretty much just a reset button that we have. Yes, Cold Bloodlust and minus Killzone did get hit, so you kind of have the reassurance that you're not going to get bloodlusted, but there are a lot of other counterplays that have been introduced to us in set 7. So unless you're going to chain Zeno on turn 2 before your opponent has 2 energy for them to interact with it, you kind of have to play smart. You can't just chain Zeno when you do it. But it is there in case you need it, because it's a really effective way of resetting the hand and putting your opponent back a couple turns if they've already amassed a huge amount of hand advantage over you. Next we have 3 Trunks Bridge to the Future. This card's really good. It's a 1-drop. Look at up to top 2 cards of your deck, and you can add 1 Saiyan among them into your hand and place the rest of the cards in the drop area. So again, you can see the theme where you kind of want to feel your drop area, but if you pitch certain cards, you're going to want to be able to get them back. That's where Power Overseeing Time comes in, and for just 2 energy, just to pay 2 energy and get a card back is very, very important. Trunks also feels the drop and also searches your pieces, which is very important. This deck does rely heavily on drop area, so you're going to see as we get closer for the targets that we're going to explain, why it's important to have cards in your drop area. Next card we're going to go over, I'm just pulling up another card we're going to talk about very shortly here. Next card we're going to go over is our super combo. We're playing 4 defensive stance Vegetas. So again, the first thing people are going to ask is why no Paragus? Well, this deck draws a lot of cards, and Paragus activates when you're at 4 life. So it's not the most optimal super combo if you want to play a more defensive strategy. It's the same reasoning I had with why I don't play Paragus in my Chilai SS2 Piercing Gohan deck, because I don't feel comfortable playing with 4 life in a Wish deck. I want to play with as much life as possible, and I want to be able to turn my super combos on as early as turn 2. And I think you're going to see that shift. I think naturally, cards that fuel the drop area, leaders or decks that fuel the drop area very efficiently are going to gravitate more towards Sparky super combos, whereas decks that just like to take life profusely as a resource are going to focus more on Paragus. So I definitely agree with it. I don't think a 2-2 split is necessary. I think the 4 of defensive stance is very important, and it's going to help you play defensively later in the game when you want to control your awakening. Next, we have 3 shocking death balls. You're playing a green leader, you might as well play a green negate or a green counter. It's very, very good. It's sparking, take a life, and you can blow up a 2 or less. Toa is very, big in the meta right now, and people not that people forget, but time regulator Vegeta is a 2-drop, so it is a shocking death ball target. And then we have the Broly Secret Rare. This card does not really need a lot of explanation. It is a win con on its own, and as you can see, as we get later on in the deck, there are targets for you to get rid of cards on your board to bring it out, and you can very easily control and manipulate your life total with one of your win cons as well. So Broly's just there as kind of like another way of winning the game if your main strategy doesn't go off. But it's not needed. Like, if you don't have the Secret Rare, you don't need to play it in this deck. You could probably just sub the Broly and the Paragus for, maybe like just a couple other, supplementary cards. We can make some suggestions if it gets to that. But for right now, you don't really need too much. So it's just there if you need it, and if you have access to it and you want to blow somebody out, you have it. So the next card we're going to go over, it's being introduced to us in set 7. It's one of the new body counter plays. It's Vegeta the Cruel. So Vegeta the Cruel is a 3-drop, 15k power, 0-5k combo. It's 1 restricted green energy. It's a counter play and permanent. If a multicolored card is in your energy, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1. So you can play him for 2. And auto, when you play this card during your opponent's turn, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 4 or less, KO it, and then your opponent chooses 1 card in their hand and sends it to the warp. So this card is busted. It's the same amount of energy as Preemptive Strike, but when it comes out, it doesn't essentially kill the card they're playing. It just kills a card that's 4 or less. So like, if you're responding to a 4-drop, then yeah, of course, you would do that. And you would get the added effect of having them pitch a card into their warp, which is huge. So it does get around Mercenary Tau. But being able to control the board with multiple counterplays is what's gonna define this set, in my opinion. I think that the new counterplays that are printed or are being printed now or are coming out in set 7 are really gonna influence the meta heavily. It's just what I've seen in testing, what I've seen from the ban list that we've had in July. They're definitely making a push for these counterplays, and Vegeta the Cruel is one of the best ones. So we're playing that at 3. The next card we have is for the greater good. It's a counter attack, so it's another negate. If your leader card is green, negate the attack. Then choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 1 and KO it. So it's a power crept full power energy, which is okay. I mean, full power energy is a set 1 counter. Same thing, green. Blow up a 1-drop, set 1 cards are a little hard to come by nowadays, so it's okay for them to reprint it. But these are one of the new drop counters that we got in set 7, so it does have a little buff. Permanent, if this card's in your drop area, you can activate it by paying its energy cost and removing it, and 1 green card in your hand from the game. So it is a neg 2, and then auto, when you activate this card, you can't activate for the greater good for the duration of the turn. So you can only use one of these per turn. But you have the added bonus of being able to activate it from the drop, which is very, very good, especially against Gogeta 7. If you have something in the drop, you kind of get yourself away from one of the attacks, and you're going to maintain a high life total throughout, hopefully, so you'll be able to kind of maneuver your way around that. So again, this is another one of those cards that's just, removal, board control, kind of delays the pace of the game, slows everything down, and it kind of just helps getting you to your overall win con by being passive and then ultimately aggressive in the later stages of the game. Next, we have 3 of the 1-drop Krillin blocker from the Anniversary box. This is essentially a 1-drop Krillin, but when your Goku is awakened, so when you're on your backside, he gains blocker and he goes to a 4-drop. So the way you want to do it is you play him for 1 while you're unawakened. You awaken, and then he becomes a 4-drop blocker. So if you wanted to have the effect of playing a 5-drop Goku off of it, you could do it. However, in this deck specifically, that's not that important. You're either going to combo this card away or pitch it for the leader fodder to draw to, because you just need 1 Krillin in your grave to activate your backside auto. So it's not that important. It is nice to have something else as another option to it, but it's not super detrimental to your play strategy. So I can see why it's in the deck, because you need Krillins, and there really aren't that many good Krillins, but you can always just play Human Shield Krillin if you really want to. It's just a 1-drop blocker from set 1. Worst case scenario, it does essentially the same thing. Next, we have 2 Paragus the Sacrifice. Pretty solid card. Again, this is where your Secret Rare interaction comes in. For 1 energy, you get to play him, you get to pop your 7-drop, draw a card, and then you bring out your Secret Rare Broly if you're at 1 life. Again, it's cute. It's there if you need it. Is it essential? No, not really, but it's nice if you have it to add it in there, because it can, Secret Rare Broly does win games, so that's why that's there. Also, again, charge fodder, or it's pitch fodder for the leader to draw to. Next, we have Broly, or Super Saiyan Broly, the Unforeseen Force. We have 2. It's a 2-drop 15k. Auto, when you play this card from your hand, activate this skill. At the end of this turn, if there is a card that is both red and green in your energy, draw 2 cards. Choose 1 card in your hand, place it in your drop area, then choose any number of your opponent's battle cards with a total energy cost of 3 or less and KO them. So again, this is another board control card. It does get you advantage by drawing 2 at the end of the turn. It is multicolor synergy. It's green energy if needed. So it's just another nice addition to the deck. Obviously, we have to fill up 50 slots. So we need to make sure that, we're getting there as efficiently as possible. We're not filling our deck with fluff. We want to make sure that we have efficient strategic plays that are going to help progress the game state. Can this be replaced? Sure. But this is what's been testing with success right now, so this is the build we wanted to get out to you guys. Next, we have 2 Preemptive Strikes. Preemptive Strike is a great card. It's a 2-drop counter play. Your opponent essentially doesn't get to play their card as long as it's 20k or less, or a 4-drop or less. So, it's really good for early game. If somebody taps out for hit and you preemptive, essentially it's game over, right? So it's a little hard to recover from committing 4 energy to a certain play and then not being able to get that play stamped on the board there. So another really good card. Obviously, this is a multicolored deck that's focusing on red-green, but you need a lot more green sources than you would red. Next, we have 3 Intensifying Power Trunks. It's just another good card. It's a 1-drop that you can play to awaken aggressively if you need to. It is your chain attack target for 2 energy if you want to evolve that way. And it's just an all-around solid card. You don't really need to play too aggressively in this deck because you want to get to your win con and still have a lot of life to fuel that, which we're going to get to. So Intensifying Power Trunks is just really good against other turtle decks. This deck is slightly turtle, but does have aggressive. It does have aggressive secondary plays, but for the most part, it is just kind of wait till you get to your win con and then just kind of blow them out that way. But it is nice to have options, which is what makes a good toolbox in your deck. Next, we have 3 Raddatz the Oppressor. This is also a new card from set 7. It's basically a red Borgos. Everybody has a Borgos now. It's a 1-drop cantrip. Draw a card when you play it, and then when your opponent switches energy to active mode using non-awakened skill during their turn, choose 1 of their energy and place it in the drop. So this is a good counter for blue. Again, every color has a Borgos now except for black. but black doesn't really need that because black has other things that nobody else does. So this is a really good card against a cantrip. It's red energy if you need it. And it's also a free 5k combo. And then we have the Kaio-Ken Mach Speed Goku. So this card is bananas. Mach Speed Kaioken Son-Goku. It's a new body counter play from set 7. It's a 3-drop 15k power, 0-5k combo. It's 1 restricted red. Similar to the Vegeta that we spoke on earlier, but different in many, many ways as well. Permanent, if there's a multicolored card in your energy, reduce the energy cost of this card by 1 in your hand. So it comes out for 2. When you play this card, choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 10,000 power for the duration of the turn. Then, if it's your opponent's turn, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, and it gets minus 5,000 power for the duration of the turn. So, at maximum, you're negging something 15k, which is huge, because when you can play this on turn 2, most turn 2 cards that are played on curve are going to be 15,000 power or less. If your opponent decides to play a 1-drop and then another 1-drop, and they're both, one's 10k and one's 5k, you can slap this down on the second 1-drop and kill both. If they decide to go time regulator, you can counterplay this and kill the time regulator. So it's very, very flexible, and just reduction of power is so good in this game because it doesn't KO, so certain cards don't get secondary effects, and it just places in the drop area by game mechanics. So there's a lot of cards that have interactions when they're KO'd, which this does not do. Like the new veggies that we spoke about last week, they can't be KO'd, but they can be placed in the drop area if their battle power is reduced to 0. So it's just something to think about when you're building for set 7. KOing cards obviously is very effective, and warping cards is probably the best way of removal, but placing in drop area is really, really good as well. So this is a card you might want to consider looking at, especially if you're playing multicolored strategies. For it coming down for only 2 energy is really, really good. And we're going to finish off the list here. The next 4 cards we're going to talk about. We have Chain Attack Trunks, self-explanatory. Evolve it for 2, over-intensifying power, and you can bring in any card that's 15k or less. There are several targets in this deck. You have your counter bodies, you have your multicolored Brolys, you have your 2-drop Broly, you have your Krillin. There's just so many things you can bring in, and of course you have your Zeno if you need to reset the game. I'm going to skip this next card, so I'll talk about that one last. And we're going to talk about, in its place, we're going to talk about the new Broly multicolor card. So we have Broly here, Demonic Origins. He's a red-green, 1 red, 1 green to place. It's a 2-drop 15k power, 1 cost 10k combo, which all of the arrival cards right now, or not arrival, all the multicolor cards right now are 1 cost 10k combos, which I think is a good way of balancing it. Energy Exhaust, permanent. If there is a card that is both red and green in energy area, you can negate Energy Exhaust, and then when you play this card, choose one of your opponent's cards in hand and place in the drop area. So we talked about this last week on Tech Talk Tuesday about it being a free dual color charge if you already have an existing dual color, which is huge because it just makes it very easy for you to continue to charge and not play backwards. But also, if you get this off a chain attack or you hard cast it, your opponent has to discard a card, which you can see how it has synergy in the deck. Me personally, I think this and the Beerus counterpart are going to see a lot of play multicolor strategies just for energy, because otherwise it's a 10k combo, so it's like a little hefty on the cost. But I can see it being a free dual color charge, which is very, very important. Then we're going to talk about Gogeta that we got from the expansion set. SS Blue Gogeta Resonant Explosion. This card is just really, really good. It's basically your new Shugesh explosive play. It's a 20k power, 10k combo card. It's got double strike. It's a rival red-green. So basically a rival red-green is when you have the specified energy or specified colored cards in your combo area, you can play a rival. So for this specifically, if you combo with a red card and a green card, you can pay 1 red, play this card. Now when you play this card, you can choose up to one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost 4 or less, KO it, but then you can't play any more Gogetas for the rest of that turn. So this is just a really good extender if you want to go wide, or it's a good defensive option if they're trying to just all in on something that's a 4-drop, or if they have a follow-up play that's a 4-drop, you combo out of the first swing, and you just pop their second swing, you essentially stop them in their tracks. This is what made Shugesh Explosive really, really good, because you're essentially you're stopping multiple attacks with just one card. So this card's really good. I like this card a lot. Red-Green Arrival is really strong, especially moving forward in set 7. Excuse me. And that's like the bread and butter of Assault of the Saiyans, is all this new multicolored stuff. So the last card we're going to talk about, which is the deck's main win condition, is Kaioken Son-Goku, Defender of Earth. It's a 7-drop, 25k power. It's got Deflect, Energy Exhaust, all the stuff that normal multicolor cards would have, right? It's permanent skill. If there are 20 or more red or green cards in your drop area, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 2. So it becomes a 5-drop. Auto, when your life reaches 1 for the duration of the turn, this card gains triple strike and dual attack and can't be KO'd by your opponent's skills. So let's just think about that real quick. It is a 25k base. Okay? It comes down for 5 when you have 20 or more in the drop, which is going to be easy to do in this deck because that's the whole strategy of it. When your life reaches 1, it gains triple strike and dual attack for the duration of the turn and can't be KO'd. So it's essentially going to do 6 damage, right? Well, how do you get it down to 1? How do you get down to 1 life on your turn, right? Well, this is how you do it. Activate main, choose 1 card in your life and add it to your hand. Your opponent reveals their hand, you choose up to 1 card from it, place it in their drop area, and this card gets plus 25,000 power for the duration of the turn. Now, not once did I say in that sentence that it was once per turn. So this activate main can be used as many times as your life permits. So if you stay at 6 life for the whole game, you can play this for 5, activated skill, take 5 life. So you're ripping 5 cards out of your opponent's hand, and you're getting whatever 25k times 5 is power. So that's 50, 100, 125k power boost. Then you're awakening and untapping 2. Oh, and not to mention your leader's going to have double strike and an extra 5k on the back. So with your leader and this card alone, you're doing 8 damage, which is insane. Because essentially what you're going to do is you're going to play Kaio-Ken. You're going to look at their hand as many times as you want and take out all of their negates. Whatever. You're going to just put them down. If your opponent decides to not be aggressive and leave you at 7 or 8 life, you're going to take even more cards out of their hand. Because remember, you're not really playing any aggression. You're just controlling the board, not letting your opponent to go wide, which is this deck's biggest weakness, early aggro and width. Going wide instead of going tall is going to kill this deck. That's why you have all the counter body plays, you have all of the negates, you have all of the Zeno if you need to reset, you have all that stuff. So you drop this bad boy down for 5 energy, go down to 1 life, awaken, and then you essentially almost guarantee yourself a win. Because you're going to be looking at your opponent's hand, so you're going to be able to take out their counters and also calculate how much combo power they have. So that's essentially what this deck was built to do. Now, I got to give Kevin a lot of credit for thinking outside the box. We are literally getting a new set this Friday, and this deck only includes about 3 or 4 cards that are introduced to us in the new set. There's a lot of older cards in this set. But obviously your main win con comes from set 7. But any other green leader might not be as effective as this one because he can also pressure on the awakened side. So you want to make sure you get your opponent down, effectively, and then rip cards out of their hand to continue to do more damage, efficient damage, not just whatever damage and give your opponent resources. So try this deck out. Kevin's been having a lot of success with it. It's been testing really well. Obviously, we'll know more for real-life analysis when we get our Set 7 set officially released to us this Friday, August 2nd. But for the most part, it's been testing very well. And it's just another deck for you guys to experiment with that revolves around Set 7. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Shout out again to Kevin for allowing me to show this list to you guys and get it out there for you in case you're interested in testing it. And then let us know how it's been working for you. I'm sure that once this deck is officially built in real life and is legal, we'll get some gameplay on the Battle Chamber. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thank you all for the support. We really do appreciate it. and we hope to see you next time. Be there or be square.